Russia's war in Ukraine has lasted stretched more than 3 weeks, with a relentless bombardment of the country's cities and towns that has resulted in over 800 civilian deaths, destroyed civilian infrastructure, and forced over 3.3 million people to flee the country, triggering a new humanitarian crisis in Europe. Things are becoming increasingly dangerous. And the war is also becoming more dangerous for America, and Biden is well aware of this. According to the New York Times, which cites top U.S. officials, the U.S. has provided intelligence that has assisted Ukrainian forces in killing numerous Russian generals killed in the Ukraine conflict. Prior to the strike that sank the vessel, the U.S. supplied intelligence with Ukraine regarding the location of the Russian missile cruiser, Moskva, a high-profile military disaster for Russia. According to the reports, President Joe Biden met with top U.S. intelligence and defense personnel to emphasize the value of their work, but he also stated that recent press allegations concerning U.S. intelligence sharing with Ukraine were unproductive. Some administration officials are concerned that the public disclosures will exacerbate the crisis by aggravating Russian President Vladimir Putin and may impede the United States' information collaboration with Ukraine. The astounding implication from these media spills about U.S. intelligence sharing with Ukraine implies that the U.S. is on the verge of a direct war. The Biden administration has denied providing Ukraine with targeting information to sink the Russian ship, as well as intelligence intended to be used to kill Russian generals. Putin warns the United States to stop arming Ukraine. As the United States and Europe increase military aid to Ukraine, Russian authorities have increased their warnings and criticism, claiming that the aid not only fuels the conflict, but also increases the risk of direct confrontation between Russia and NATO powers. The stunning underperformance of Russia's military has also encouraged the U.S. Initially, U.S. intelligence predicted that Kyiv would fall within 72 hours. However, Ukraine retained control of the capital, and Russian forces withdrew. Washington is no longer afraid of prodding the bear. Weapon systems developed and supplied by the United States and Europe have been critical in slowing Russia's advance. Javelins have given outgunned Ukrainians a fighting chance against Russian armor, and have become a popular symbol as a result. However, if American officials begin bragging in public about killing Russian generals and sinking the Russian flagship, killing many sailors, the U.S. may be opening the door for Putin to respond in ways that dangerously expand the fight and take the U.S. deeper than it wants to be. A former CIA official said, "It is difficult to predict Putin's next move, because he is an egomaniac who is preoccupied with his own impulses. Putin is unpredictable, but he is not insane." The rhetoric and saber-rattling between Moscow and the West have become noticeably more aggressive, raising fears of a direct confrontation between the two power blocs. Russia has cut off gas supplies to 2 European countries, and has repeatedly warned the West that the threat of nuclear war is very real. However, analysts believe that Putin is preying on Western risk aversion, and that the chances of a nuclear war are remote. Many people predicted that NATO's expansion would lead to war. Those warnings were ignored. For many years, threats from the Kremlin kept Finland and Sweden out of NATO. Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine changed all of that in an instant. NATO has been creeping closer to Russia's border over the last 20 years. Former Soviet states have joined NATO, which Russia sees as a provocation that will harm their security interests. NATO ignored the warning and, whether through short-sightedness or ego, downplayed Moscow's concerns, and continuing to expand until the situation in Ukraine erupted. Russia's invasion of a sovereign country cannot be justified, but NATO's arrogant, tone-deaf policy toward Russia over the past quarter century deserves a large share of the blame. Russia's security concerns are legitimate, and Russians see NATO's eastward expansion as a threat to their country. Putin has been clear for years that if the expansion continues, the Russians will likely face serious opposition, including military action. Could this escalate into World War III? In theory, the US and NATO military assistance to Ukraine could pave the way for an escalation. Russia could, for example, attack a military depot in Poland, containing weapons bound for Ukraine. However, this is unlikely. The Russians don't appear to want a larger conflict with NATO that could lead to nuclear escalation, so they've avoided cross-border strikes, even when they could destroy supply shipments bound for Ukraine. To avoid any kind of unintentional conflict, the US Department of Defense opened a direct line of communication with its Russian counterparts in early March. It is unclear how well this is working. Some reports indicate that the Russians are not responding to American requests, but there is a long history of effective dialogue between rivals fighting each other through proxy forces. In reality, Ukraine was and still is a corrupt country. However, supporting Ukraine is the right thing to do, because the longer this war continues, the more Ukrainians will flee their homeland, and the more devastation will be wrought upon their homes, cities, industry, and economy. However, the West's current approach of supporting Ukraine's war goal of defeating the aggressor and providing arms for that purpose, while avoiding direct military intervention, is guaranteed to prolong the war. Russia's progress may be slowed, but it is unlikely to be stopped, let alone pushed out of Ukraine, and the grinding destruction and heinous war crimes will continue in the meantime.